Hello everybody, my name is Benjamin Bloom. Back in the car once again, not because I've been to a game, but it's the quietest, driest place at the moment. Continuing with the close season content, there seems to be plenty to talk about with the Women's World Cup and the League of Nations. But the thing that kept popping up in my Twitter feed over the weekend actually was something that was a bit more of a touchy subject. The EFL has followed up, and I'll quote so I don't get any of this wrong, their trial for BAME managers by introducing a recruitment code into regulations in order to address the underrepresentation of black, Asian and minority ethnic managers in the league. Wow. So the EFL had been running a trial of something called the Rooney rule, which is taken from American football, where it was a requirement to interview for managers' jobs, one black, Asian or minority ethnic candidate. And they've now passed this into a regulation. So now clubs have to do it. These 72 clubs, whenever a manager's job comes up, they have to interview one of these candidates. The reason for this is the underrepresentation, which we can talk in very direct numbers. There are 72 EFL clubs. There are 3 black, Asian and minority ethnic managers. We've got Keith Curle at Northampton, great centre-back for Man City, Sheffield United back in the day, Keith Curle. Dino Marmria at Stevenage. Don't know too much about Dino, so I'll move on to Sol Campbell at Macclesfield, who we all know a hell of a lot about. I know this doesn't affect the Premier League, but Chris Hughton has just been fired. I'm sure he won't be out of work long. And our friend Nuno Espirito Santo. So there were 5 black, Asian, minority ethnic managers working, but we're talking about the EFL where there's only 3, and there seems to be an underrepresentation. Obviously, I guess started watching football in the mid-90s properly, so right through my football life it's never been a surprise to see amazing black players. They were always there right from since I've been watching, and just more and more and more and more. And then particularly when the Premier League came and we started getting players coming in from Africa as well, and there was that big influx. Just tons of brilliant black footballers. JJ Okocha particularly just went off in my head when I talked about great African players. Didier Drogba as well. Some of the absolute greats of the Premier League era. So as a fan, it's not really a surprise to see great black players. The other ethnic minorities, Indian, well, not very many at all. We have Michael Chopra at my club Ipswich. That didn't go well. He was certainly of Indian descent. Asian players, there's been the odd one in the Premier League that appeared to be more signings to reach a target market in the Far East, to kind of create a bit of maybe financial boost with the fan base over there. But I think Park Ji-sung would be number 1 of those guys for Man United. Obviously, Alex Ferguson always found a way to get him doing some weird job in big games, trusted him greatly. So what I'm saying is, as players, there's been absolutely plenty, but there obviously seems to be some kind of issue or some kind of barrier from these guys who've played in our game in England getting then managerial jobs. Now, with these issues, I don't want to be the terrified, straight, white, working middle class guy who's terrified to talk about this stuff, because I don't think that helps when you get the guy who's just terrified of offending anybody and minding his P's and Q's. I think we should say how we feel and what we think. Obviously, I don't have the experience of living as a black, Asian or minority ethnic person and trying to get work or receiving any kind of barriers as such. So all I can do is try and empathise and try and say what I think is right. The replies I've seen on Twitter have been very, very mixed, so I'm going to hopefully leave it to the comments for people to unpick this, because like I say, it's very thorny. I don't want people to be heavy-handed and rah 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 on the one side, but also I don't want people to be terrified to say what they think. If you agree or disagree with this, doesn't make you a fascist or right-wing in any way. It's just an opinion, and it's good to have a discourse about these things rather than making huge, if you'll excuse the pun, black or white statements and positions. There is a grey area in the middle that we can occupy. I see the idea as to try and push through candidates, maybe not even as such to get jobs, but to get them in the process, to get them known to owners and have discussions. And I mean, I guess if someone is hired as a result of the Rooney rule, then that can only really be a good thing. If someone got a good candidate for this regulation, that would be a good thing. The kickback that I keep seeing, and the argument and the wording that I keep seeing against this, is that managers should be appointed on their credibility rather than on the colour of their skin or their ethnicity. So I think what people are saying is that owners have a right. Clubs are basically private companies nowadays. Owners have a right to employ who they like, and they should hire the best person for the job, whether they are whatever, black, Asian, minority, ethnic, male, female, gay, straight, what have you. So that seems to be the argument, and I think I kind of know what the people who are making that argument are saying, but remember, there's no gun to these people's heads to say, no, you have to employ, I don't know, 1 in 10 clubs has to employ a black, Asian, minority ethnic candidate. I think it's just trying to get the conversation started and to get the candidates into the cycle and around. I'm sure all the owners share information and say, oh, I had him for an interview, I would have hired him if I hadn't had so-and-so. I think you should go for him, I had a good feeling about him. So it's a really, really tricky one, isn't it? Because sometimes I feel, as a white man who isn't a racist or a sexist, I hope I'm a balanced individual who judges people on their merits. Sometimes I feel that the crimes of the past, and you can see it's just hard for white people like myself to talk about this without sounding treading on any toes or throwing any grenades into any mixes. But the crimes in the past, it does feel like to a certain extent that time, patience and good thinking and good process will sort this stuff out. And it does sometimes feel like hastening it then throws up other flags. But really, if there is a history of people being underrepresented, then saying to those same people, oh, you've just got to give it time and you've just got to give it patience, isn't really that helpful to them. So this seems to be a good half measure between one, saying what I just said, oh yeah, be patient, if everybody's nice and the people's brains develop properly and the world develops and the universe develops and everybody's nice to each other, this won't be a problem in the future. That doesn't seem overly fair to Sol Campbell or whoever trying to get a job at the moment, telling him, oh, don't worry, it'll be all right in 30 years when you can't work anymore. And I think it's a good half measure between that and being even more heavy-handed with it, which would then appear to be prejudicial the other way and positive discrimination. So as you can see, it's a very, very difficult topic. It's difficult for black, Asian, minority, ethnic people to talk about because they're often accused of playing the race card quite quickly. As you can see, I it's difficult for a white person to talk about, because you want to be empathetic, and you want the right thing to happen. You want the best people to get the jobs, and you want people to be given opportunities and not miss out through any kind of ridiculous prejudice. So very, very difficult. I think it's a good thing. I think just getting in the conversation, and without forcing anything or being too heavy-handed, surely it can only be a good thing. I keep hearing people say, oh, well, if so-and-so is just called up to be a token interview, then that's not a good thing. But hopefully instances like that won't happen. And from what I understand, there's plenty of black, Asian, minority, ethnic people applying for these jobs anyway, so that should not be an issue. And like I said at the start of the video, given how many great players of that description we see all the time, and that seems to be the pathway for football managers, then they should be coming through. I've tried to disseminate my thoughts on that. As you can see, not my normal lucid flowing self, because it's just a bit of a tricky topic. Bad things have happened in the past, not many generations back, to do with racism. There is an argument that we're not completely cured of that, but we go in the right direction. So it's very, very tricky. So if you are going to comment on the video below, try and be sensitive about a sensitive issue. But like I say, if you don't think it's a good idea, please comment that without feeling that you're any kind of right-wing terrible person. And if you think it's a great idea, comment that as well. I think the most important thing with issues like this is sensible, open discussion where nobody calls a group a name and back and forth like that. That doesn't really appear to help. And all we really want to get towards, I guess, is the best people get the jobs, and no group, hate the term, I hate lumping people together, feels like they're not getting the opportunity. Anyway, I hope that wasn't too cringe-inducing. Watch me tiptoeing around a difficult subject. I'd rather prefer to just talk about people kicking balls into goals, but there are more important issues sometimes that we need to look at. Please get your comments in. Follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom, and yeah, feel free to if you agree with me, disagree with anything I've said, feel free to let me know, and hopefully we can get a good debate and at least get people thinking about it in a better way, rather than some of the what's the word, polarized comments I've seen on Twitter. Thank you for watching. I hope this video is well received. I've tried to deal with it as sensibly as I can, and see you again soon for some more close season content.